Today I'm going to talk about the green card interview for employment-based adjustment of status, specifically about the EB2 NIW. We're going to go over which questions USCIS asks, what to bring, and what to expect from these interviews. So stay tuned. Hi, my international hardworking friends. Welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to go over the green card interview for employment-based applications. Specifically, I'm going to talk about my own experience and that of my husband since we were asked to go together. First of all, are interviews common for EB2 NIW AOS applicants? The answer is no. Green card interviews are mostly waived for EB2 NIW applicants. They are most common for marriage-based cases since they need to demonstrate a bona fide marriage to USCIS officers. However, USCIS sometimes does send interview requests for employment-based applications. If you're on this boat, do not worry, we will go over what to expect. Now, depending on your specific case, the questions asked would be focused on that specifically. Not all interviews are the same and questions may vary a lot from one case to another. So for example, if you got married to your spouse who is also foreign and you married here in the US, that might trigger some marriage-based questions. I have seen cases of EB2 NIW approved applicants whose spouses were foreign. So some of the questions were, when did you get married? Who are your spouse's family members? Do you have a lease agreement together and joint bank accounts? Do you have photos together? Have you met each other's families? Name each other family members like parents and siblings. When or where did you two meet? Do you have financial proof or other records showing that you have built a life together? So very marriage rate related questions. This surprised me, to be honest, so it's good to be prepared for all types of questions. But overall, there is a sequence. There are first personal identifiable questions like what is your full name, date of birth, country and city of birth, country of nationality, your current address. Then there is immigration-related questions like when was the first time you came into the US? Were you inspected by the CBP when you entered? When was your last entry into the US and where? What visa or status did you have upon your first entry? Have you ever overstayed your visa? Why did you move to the US? So everything related to your immigration history. Then there could be employment-related questions like who is your current employer? Where do you last work? What was or is your position, or what are you doing now? Then some EB2 NIW related questions could include what is your field of study? What did you study in your bachelor's and master's degree? What was your proposed endeavor about? Can you briefly describe it to me? Do you have your school transcripts and diploma with you? Who cover your school expenses, that is in case you studied in the US? Then finally are the I-485 yes/no questions of part 9 that are part of basically all interviews. These are, have you ever committed a crime of any kind? Have you ever violated any controlled substance law or regulation of a state, the US, or a foreign country? Have you ever trafficked any controlled substances, illegal drugs, narcotics? Have you ever engaged in money laundering? Do you intend to engage in activities like espionage or sabotage in the US? Have you ever received any weapons training, paramilitary training? Have you ever served or been a member of any armed group? Have you ever participated in torture, genocide, killing, or tried to kill anyone, and so on? So all of these questions, you can find it in the I-485. They're listed there, and you must have responded to all of them when you apply to your adjustment of status. Now, I want to go over my personal experience. I received a notification over email about my interview schedule for about 6 weeks into the future. In the notification, it said the date, time, and address I should show up at, and it included a list of documents I should bring to my interview. This included my passport, any other government ID, like a driver's license, my birth certificate, immigration history documents, like I-94s, visas, documents that confirmed prior legal statuses, any and all permits provided by USCIS, like EAD cards. If the interview was marriage-based, they asked to bring your spouse along with lease agreements, photos, IRS transcripts, marriage license, financial records, all of that. And my husband received the same notification. So I brought everything: our passports, licenses, marriage certificate, I-94s, visas, I-20s for both of us. I brought photos of us just in case, our lease together, our last IRS transcripts from 2025, our birth certificates with translations, our combo cards, and all of my prior EAD cards. The notifications say not to arrive more than 30 minutes before, so we arrived 10 to 15 minutes before the scheduled time. We went through security and checked in on the second floor where they scanned our interview notifications and told us to wait for our assigned officer, and they gave us their last name. Also, you can bring a purse, by the way, in case you're wondering about that. I brought mine with a folder with all documents, so that's not going to be a problem. I was personally a bit nervous about this interview because, first of all, my spouse is so bad with dates. So I didn't want the officer to doubt our marriage at all, even though was, again, like an employment-based case, right? But since I heard other applicants' questions and their interview, I was a bit nervous about this. I also didn't know what kind of officer I would get, like if he or she was going to be intimidating or all, too probing. But after 30 minutes of waiting after a scheduled time, an officer came and called us. He was so nice and had such a great and calm energy. He directed us to his office, and then we started off by swearing an oath, standing, promising that we're only going to be providing truthful information to the best of our knowledge and our ability. He asked us for passports and other IDs, and we gave him our passports and driver's licenses. He started with me. He took my passport and asked me my full name, my date of birth, the city and country of birth, and my current address. He also asked me since when I had started living in that address, and he confirmed my date of marriage with me. He asked who was my current employer and the last and first time I had arrived to the US. Where in the US also I had arrived, and if I was inspected at a port, which I confirmed. He asked if I was part of any organizations, which I confirmed. I had included my religion, which he was very familiar with. He then proceeded to ask me the I-485 yes/no questions, and I responded to all of them. All this time, he was on the computer checking all the information I was providing to him and updating information in my case as needed. He had a small screen at the border of the desk, like there was a desk and he was in front of us in the computer. So the screen was in front of the desk facing us. So when he was done with me, I signed a text on the screen saying that I provided only true information, and then he was done with me. Then he moved on to my husband, and he asked the exact same questions as, his full name, date of birth, city and country of birth, and confirmed his current address, which was the same as mine, and date he started living in that address. He confirmed our date of marriage with him, but it wasn't like, when did you get married? Like, it was more like, you got married on this date, right? Which was the true date, so he phrased it that way for me as well. He asked about my husband's current employer and the first time he had arrived to the US, where in the US he had arrived, and with which visa. He checked his visas in his passport since my husband was a J1, but he wasn't really subjected to the 2-year rule. So he was just like, the officer was just confirming that, checking his visas. He asked my husband if he belonged to the same church as I did. He asked if my husband had received any special military training since his prior university in his home country had the word like military as part of its name, and that was showing up on his I-485 on the officer's screen. He then proceeded to ask him the I-485 yes/no questions, to which my husband responded no to all. There was one question specifically that the officer said, have you ever been convicted of any crime or been arrested, including any traffic violation? And my husband had not heard that very last part, and he actually had a traffic citation where he was stopped by a police officer. That was only like a few months ago and happened after, way after we submitted our adjustment of status. Then the USCIS officer checked on his computer, and a minute later, he told my husband, actually, like, there is one question where you were supposed to answer yes. And he repeated the question, and my husband was, like, super confused. Like, I haven't been convicted of any crime. I have never been arrested. And I asked the officer if it was okay for me to translate for him, and he said, like, that was totally fine. I translated that last part, and I reminded him, like, hey, remember that traffic citation? So my husband was like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. He apologized profusely and accepted that it did in fact happen, that, he confirmed the citations. And the officer knew the amount that it was due, the date that it happened. So let me tell you this, like, the officer had everything. Absolutely everything on his computer, even like the court date, the final decision, everything, which confirmed to me like there is no point in lying. Even the officer told me that other officers don't even correct the applicants. They just like take the answers at face value, even though they know that the answer should have been different, and they just take that as a lie and deny green cards. I mean, he knows his coworkers, so we appreciated him for being compassionate and so understanding with us. And we actually hadn't paid the fine yet because we were still within the time frame, so we had like a few more weeks to pay. The officer told my husband that like that's totally okay, just pay it, otherwise you won't have your residency approved. So if you had any doubt that anything outstanding in your personal profile, like an unpaid traffic citation, would risk your green card, it seems that it would. And I'm not talking about like a parking ticket, right? Like that's very small. I'm talking about being stopped by a police officer. So, don't freak out about those little tiny things. But anyway, my husband asked if he could pay it right there. He said like, there's no rush. Just to do it sometime soon would be good because he wanted to do the final review for a case that day before going home. Luckily, he said that wasn't a big of a deal, that happens all the time. But just make sure you listen to the questions very carefully, and it's very okay to bring someone to translate or an interpreter that can help you understand everything from beginning to end. So again, all this time he was on his computer checking all given information. He asked my husband to sign on the small screen too. Then he printed a couple pages for us, which confirmed that we had shown up for the interview and that the interview had been processed on the day. Just to keep it in our records. Now, like I said, he was a very nice guy. So during the interview, I did ask a few things just out of curiosity, which he was, very open, and he responded to all of them. And one of them specifically, I think would be helpful for all of you to know since it comes directly from a USCIS officer. Among everything we discussed, I asked if there were people who responded yes to all other yes/no questions from like the I-485 form, like espionage, torture, trafficking related questions. And he said yes, that sometimes USCIS officers even know before applicants sit in that chair in front of them who are coming to the interview and what background they have. So there is, again, no point in lying. Most of them, like the applicants, do tell the truth, but a lot of them did deny it. I asked if those green cards were approved as well, and he said yes as well. Just that they go through different filters because sometimes it depended a bit on context, which again, it surprised me. So if you are scared of something that has happened in your life that you think might prevent you from getting a green card, you can in fact apply, provide truthful information, and even use the interview as an opportunity to provide further context to your case. And you might have a chance to get your green card approved. But he also said that in some cases, people would go to the interview and then never go back home. Not because of deportation, because that did not happen in that building. The building was reserved for interviews for residency and naturalizations. But it was because those applicants were looked by the state or the police and had not really complied with the law. So after the interviews, they were taken to the police instead. So I really hope this information is helpful to you in, making a decision. So after we resolved the misunderstanding, that's how we ended our interview. We shook hands and the officer told us that everything looked good for approval, that we might hear back in a few weeks. And from the moment we arrived to the moment we left was about an hour and 40 minutes total, with probably 45 minutes of, entering the building, doing the check-in and waiting, and the rest was the interview. They didn't ask me for any other paperwork I had brought to the interview. Everything I printed out. I only presented passports and IDs as I told you. And it seems that the interview was more of like checking or updating information rather than being too probing on our marriage or the employment. So we're still waiting for a decision, but right now we're okay since we have our combo cards and it help us do what we need in the meantime, like working or traveling. So once I get a final update, I will make another video sharing that with you guys and give again a whole overview of the timeline of this process with the EB2 NIW from beginning to end. If you would like to know how to prepare your own AOS application, I have prepared templates from my own case as a primary applicant and my husband as a derivative. You can email me at info@easyvisaconsultant.com for prices and purchasing, or if you would like a more guided service for your AOS, you can email me for that as well. I'm also available for one-on-one sessions in case you want to go through some questions from your case with me. You can book an appointment using this link over here. I hope this video was very helpful for you guys. In case you received an interview invitation, I might be a bit nervous of what to expect. I wish you the best of luck in this process. See you in the next video. Ciao, ciao.